The Fresh Fiction Podcast is brought to you by REVELL and Bethany House Books, who are celebrating the release of The Accidental Guardian by Mary Connealy. When Trace Riley finds the smoldering ruins of a small wagon train, he recognizes the hand behind the attack as the same group who left him as sole survivor years ago. Living off the wilderness since then, he's finally carved out a home and started a herd, while serving as a self-appointed guardian of the trail, driving off dangerous men. He'd hoped those days were over, but the latest attack shows he was wrong. Deborah Harkness saved her young sister and two toddlers during the attack, and now finds herself at the mercy of her rescuer. Trace offers the only shelter for miles around, and agrees to take them in until she can safely continue. His simple bachelor existence never anticipated kids and women in the picture, and their arrival is unsettling, yet enticing. Working to survive the winter and finally bring justice to the trail, Trace and Deborah find themselves drawn together, yet every day approaches the moment she'll leave forever. The Accidental Guardian is available anywhere books are sold online or in stores. You can find out more about Mary Connealy and her books at freshfiction.com. Hi guys! Welcome back to the Fresh Fiction Podcast, where we break down all the fun things we've watched, read, and listened to this week. I'm your new best friend, Gwen Reyes, and today I'm digging into the latest Hamildrop from Lin-Manuel Miranda called First Burn, and I also fell in love with the new movie, Book Club, which is out in theaters now. And at the end of this podcast, you can actually hear an interview with me and Lynette Eason, the author of Oath of Honor. We talked about how she creates high suspense with great romances and her love of When Calls the Heart, and how reading in her genre makes her a better writer. But first, let's dig into Hamilton and the Hamildrops, which are pretty much my favorite reason for every month to start or finish, because Lynn is just wonderful, and these little nuggets of treats for Hamilton fans are just the perfect way to enjoy the musical and to enjoy it beyond what we have been given by the Tony Award-winning play. So, as I said, each month the creator of Hamilton, an American musical, releases a new song inspired by his blockbuster musical. First Burn is the first all-female Hamildrop and features 5 actresses who have played the character Eliza Hamilton, the long-suffering and supportive wife of Alexander Hamilton. Lexi Lawson, Ariana Asfer, Shobha Narayana, and Rochelle Ann Go and Julia Harriman bring their beautiful voices to this haunting first draft of the song Burn that eventually made its way into the final draft. Miranda mentioned in tweets following the release that First Burn was an emotional journey for Eliza, with this version much more reactive and angrier than she turns out to be in Burn. And it's so true, because the entire time you're listening to the song, you're just like breaking down for this poor woman who loves her husband so much and has given so much for him and supported him for every single turn and crazy thing he has done, because he's a very competitive and focused and driven man, which can be very frustrating when you're just a woman trying to have a family and keep everything together. So it was amazing to see this version of Eliza, and to also hear in the original Burn, which is what made it into the final draft. It's really crazy to see the evolution of her. So using these 5 voices adds a haunting element to the song that makes it a standout amongst the other 4 Hamildrops released this year. Miranda wants fans to be able to get these songs easily, so First Burn, along with the other 4 songs in the collection, is available on all music streaming services. I listen to Google Play, but of course it's over on Spotify and Tidal and Apple Music. What I'm watching this week? I took my mom to see Book Club as an early Mother's Day date, and it was a total success. In Bill Holderman's charming romantic comedy, he and co-writer Aaron Sims explore how finding just the right book can irrevocably, that's a very hard word to say, change a group of 4 friends for the best. And, of course, that book is the same novel that opened the floodgates, pun unintended, but I like it, so it's staying, for millions of women across the world, 50 Shades of Grey. Unlike the sexy yet messy adaptation of the E.L. James trilogy, Book Club digs into the world of 4 women who read and apply Anna and Christian's passions to their own lives. The film stars Jane Fonda, Mary Steenburgen, Diane Keaton, and cast MVP Candice Bergen, who steals every scene she's in. She's wonderful. She's the reason to stay, and I would watch a whole movie of her just going on terrible Tinder dates if it was possible. Let us get a sequel to Book Club going. Let's start a campaign. Let's write our votes in for this, because it's such a good movie. You will not be disappointed. I enjoyed it so much. I can't wait to see it again. It's so sweet, and it's a total blast from start to finish. And like I said, After we get back from this break, you will be able to hear an interview that I did with Lynette Eason. Her new book, Oath of Honor, is out earlier this year, and then she's got a sequel of it coming out in the fall. So, but if you love what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to the Fresh Fiction Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or any of your favorite podcast apps. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram with @RealVixen. So stay tuned for after the break for my interview with Lynette Eason. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm sure you have a very busy day in front of you.
Oh, well. It's always busy, and it's always nice to take a break. So.
Well, good. I'm glad. Now we get to talk about you for the next 20 minutes. So.
Oh, yay.
Well, thank you so much, and I am very, very excited about this new series for you, because I had seen the Hidden Secret series, or the Hidden Identity series forever, because it's been in our Fresh Fiction box, but I'm really excited about Oath of Honor, and I'm sure you are as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I am. I think I'm getting a lot of good reviews, so that's been really nice.
Oh, good. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. Not sure which one to know. Let's see. I'm just a wife and a mom. That's really my real life. And, I write when my son's in school. I have a daughter in college, at a college of Charleston, and, I just spend my days writing and doing family life and hanging out with friends.
You get to write full-time now. Have you always been a writer?
Yeah, I remember in 8th grade when I wanted to write a book and tried to do it. And, so the desire was there at a young age. And, of course, life and school and college and working, it just kind of put that dream kind of on the back burner. It wasn't until I had my daughter, and she was about 9 months old, mm-hmm. and I was like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have one kid, and while she's a handful, this might be a really good time to try to write that book I've always wanted to write. Mm-hmm. And so over the period of about, I want to say 9 to 10 months, something like that, I just sat down and started pounding out this story that I had in my head, and of course I thought it was the greatest thing ever, but a couple of publishing houses disagreed, and I got quite a few rejections. I was like, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. But I kept at it, and 8 years later, I got a call and said, we want to buy your book. So that was cool. Wow, 8 years. Were you surprised that it took that much time to get some more reception for it? Not really, because by that time I had kind of figured out that the whole publishing process wasn't you just write a book and somebody is grateful to buy it, And so at that point, when I did finally sell, I was more surprised that it actually happened than I didn't get another rejection.
At that point, you frame the picture, you frame the email, and keep it in your writer's nook.
Yes, absolutely.
So what was the first book that you sold then?
Well, the first book that I sold was actually to Love Inspired Suspense.
Okay.
The division of Harlequin, the Christian line. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first book I sold, and I actually sold 2 books to them before I sold to REVELL, but I had always wanted to do the big trade, the trade size books, and I had a specific story that I was working on for that line. I didn't know it was going to be REVELL at the time, but I knew I wanted it to be, that longer book. And so it was in 2008, I believe, that we sold it to REVELL, and the first book for them came out in 2010.
That's great. So, and because I see that you've pretty much only done romantic suspense. What is it about the genre that you love? Oh,
it's just a big puzzle. I think I look at, you know, when I was growing up, I was big into Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, the Boxcar Children, all those people that kids these days probably don't even have a clue who they are.
I know, it's very embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm showing my age, I guess, but that's okay. But it was those stories that really just sparked my interest. I thought it was so cool, you know, that it wasn't law enforcement. I mean, Nancy Drew was just, you know, she was just a teenager. And so I guess I just thought that was really cool that she would be able to solve a mystery or solve a problem or run from the bad guys and find justice for people. And so as I was writing, I guess I was just always drawn to that genre just because I love the whole, you know, justice finally wins in the end. The bad guys get it. And, I love that. And, I guess that's why I'm drawn to write those stories. I do more law enforcement now simply because, I don't know, I guess I've made a lot of contacts, and I've always kind of done law enforcement. I'm really interested in law enforcement, and in another life I might have gone into law enforcement, but I'm too chicken to chase bad guys for real. I don't mind doing it in fiction, but
well, and the nice thing too about doing it in fiction is that, like you said, the bad guy always gets caught, and there's always justice for people. Whereas in real life, you don't really have that, and that's the nice thing about fiction.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just weave my little stories. I do try to make it as realistic or as true to life as possible. I try not to take too much author licensure with the law enforcement, and how things are actually done. So I do a lot of research. I have a lot of contacts that are willing to read the final story and give me feedback to make sure I get it right. I just really enjoy that genre. I've always enjoyed it, and yeah.
That's so cool, because especially having the contacts, have you had maybe the same readers in law enforcement for a few books so that they've been able to kind of see your progression?
I think so, yeah. I have two faithful retired FBI agent buddies that read everything I write.
That's awesome.
I know, it's really incredible, and and going to different conferences, I meet a lot of different people, and I was at a conference last year in Nashville, Tennessee, and I met a guy that actually lives not too far from me, and he's a police officer in that town, and I told him who I was. I was like, oh, wow, would you be willing to answer any law enforcement questions I might have for the state of South Carolina, which, you know, because sometimes the laws, you know, the way things are done just a little bit different from state to state. So he's like, oh, absolutely. And so, you know, it's just really cool, the people that have been placed in, that God's placed in my path through this whole journey. So
yeah, it's really great that there's so many law enforcement agents out there that are so willing and open to kind of being there as consultants for writers.
Oh, absolutely. And you'll find that most law enforcement people are very willing to share with you because they want you to get it right. They don't want to be misrepresented. And so they're definitely willing to share.
They're like the harshest critics, but also the most welcoming in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, with Oath of Honor, this is a new series for you. Were you nervous about starting a new series?
Oh yeah, I'm always nervous about every book that comes out. But the first book is usually I found is the hardest one for me because it's simply because it's introducing a whole new cast of characters and I just was like, I don't know if I can do this, but I ended up practically rewriting the whole story after I got it back from my editor. Not the whole story, but there was at least half of it that was cut and redone to make sure it was going to be the right book for the series and the right first book. And so that was not fun, but I'm very pleased. Yeah, I'm very pleased with the outcome. the story. I mean, oh, thank goodness for my editor. I mean, she's just amazing, and had some really great feedback and really helped me shape this story up to the way it needed to be to introduce the series. And so, yeah, so I'm really happy with the way it turned out now, and with the reviews that are coming in. Seeing that the readers are really enjoying it too, so that's really nice.
That's awesome. And so, can you tell us a little bit about Oath of Honor?
Sure. Okay, so the story revolves around Ryan, Marshall, and Izzy St. John. And Izzy is part of this large law enforcement family. Just to introduce them a little bit, her mother, Isabelle St. John, is the chief of police, and I studied in Columbia, South Carolina, because I actually went to school in Columbia, to the University of South Carolina, and I'm familiar with the city, but I did discover in writing this first book, I'm not that familiar with the way law enforcement works. I've never had any run-ins with law enforcement, so...
That's good, you always keep your nose clean.
Yeah, so I did do quite a bit of research, and the city of Columbia is divided up into 5 different regions: east, north, south, west, and the metro. And so I had a couple of bad cops in the story, and I didn't want to set them in an actual region that was real in Columbia, because I just thought that would not be cool.
Yeah.
So I actually made up my own region. And so while most of the story is, true to life, the street names are correct and the location and that kind of stuff, but the main headquarters of the police department is at One Justice Square in Columbia. The Midtown region is completely fictional, and all the people in that region are completely fictional. So the cool thing is I did get in touch with the sheriff of Columbia, of the Columbia Police Department, and he was very willing to answer any questions and email me back and forth. So that was nice. So I feel like, yeah. So anyway, so we have this family, law enforcement family, and Ryan and Izzy have known each other since childhood. They grew up together, and she's always kind of had a crush on him, but he's a couple of years older, and he was more friends with her brother than her, so he just kind of saw her as another, younger sister kind of thing. And then he was kind of out of the picture for a little while, and he came back, and of course he had some baggage of his own. And so anyway, the story revolves around them, and in the opening scene, Izzy's partner, Kevin, is killed. I'm not giving anything away. It's like on the back cover. And her partner's killed, and her partner is actually Ryan's brother. So Ryan is very involved in wanting to know what happened and what went wrong and finding the killer and that kind of thing. So, but of course, having him work on a case would be a conflict of interest, so it kind of has to keep informed, kind of under the table kind of thing. But so anyway, it's really the story of the two of them trying to find justice for his brother's killer, and the people that don't want them to figure it out target them. So of course they're in danger the whole story, and hopefully that keeps things interesting from there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many awesome sort of twists and turns that readers will definitely enjoy.
Oh, good. Yeah, I hope so.
So are because I know this is the first one, for your next ones, are they going to follow the same couple, or is it going to be a different pair of detectives?
No, it's a different set of characters for each one. But so because Izzy's from this big family, she has a sister named Chloe, and Chloe is a canine officer. And in Call to Protect, Chloe and her partner Hank, who is a Dutch Shepherd, they pair up with a U.S. Marshal to find his daughter, who's been kidnapped by a ring of human traffickers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then the third book is centered on Brady St. John, who is brother to Izzy and Chloe. And he pairs up with a financial crime investigator. So she works for a bank, and she has discovered some things that are not quite right, and someone targets her, and off they go trying to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. So that's like the greatest thing about working in fiction, I bet, is that you kind of get to explore these sort of darker elements of the seedy underworld without, having to really go into it yourself.
Right, exactly. Yeah, very much so.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that that's what's really what I'm always attracted to with romantic suspense and suspense in general, is just kind of the intrigue of that, because it's something that, I live in Texas, and I live a very nice routine life, and I never really have to experience sort of murder at my doorstep or anything.
Right, exactly. And I don't go into a whole lot of like details and stuff. I leave a lot of the stuff up to the reader's imagination. I give enough to be kind of a little bit creepy, and enough to have suspense, but not enough to really make you go, "Ooh, I don't want to read those." You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. You're like, I'm not here for being gross or anything. So, since you have done mostly romantic suspense, and have you been interested in writing any other genres?
I have some interest in, believe it or not, YA dystopian type story. I actually have an idea for it, but I just don't know. I don't know. That maybe something I do in my old age and retirement. So right now I have a really good thing going with, the romantic suspense genre, and I love what I do. I have a great, base of readers. I've got super fans, and a publisher that really works hard to put my stuff out there and make sure that my books get into the hands of the readers and stuff. And so I have got it really good, and I don't want to rock that boat right now.
Exactly. I was like, you're very busy, and that's the way to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do. I love it. So, I really have it good, I have to say.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things that we like to do at the Fresh Fiction Podcast is we are interested in knowing what you're currently reading right now. And I have a couple other questions for you about that, but like what you're reading, if you're watching anything, and if you are listening to anything, either books or podcasts or a band that you're really into. We're just interested in what makes you who you are.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I read a lot. Of course, my favorite would be the romantic suspense genre, but I've discovered that I have a friend who wrote a devotional, The Wind Calls the Heart. I love Wind Calls the Heart, the television show, and I make sure I watch that every Sunday night.
Oh, you're a Hardy?
I am a Hardy. I am an official Hardy. So, but Michelle Cox and Brian Bird wrote a devotional together, and it just came out in February. That I have been reading. I've been using that as like my daily quiet time, and reading through the devotional. So that's been really cool. I've really enjoyed that. And right now I just have back-to-back deadlines. So all of my fiction enjoyment reading has been put on hold until about mid-April. So, and television watching has been pretty slim to none. But I do watch One Calls the Heart, and I do watch I love Lethal Weapon, the new Lethal Weapon that comes on. Yeah. I have to say I do watch that, and Blue Bloods. And those are my 3 weekly indulgences, even when I'm on deadline. So
you have to have a little time for yourself whenever you can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's so interesting to me that you read and really watch a lot of suspense as well, because I hear from a lot of authors that tend to be like, well, I don't want to read what I'm writing because it might affect, but I find it actually more interesting when they do read it, because it's like that is your true love then.
Oh yeah, no, I would never give up reading that genre. I have too many favorite authors that I was reading before I started writing. And so, like, for example, Terry Blackstock, Dee Henderson, who was I reading? I'm trying to think. John Grisham. I like a lot of his earlier stuff. So I have some authors that I'm just, that I have them on my one-click purchase. And so yeah, so I read them. Colleen Coble, I just and the funny thing is about reading other suspense authors, you can still get great ideas from their stuff, but you make it your own. It's not like you're going to go out and plagiarize what they're doing. You can just totally make it, but it still will trigger an idea. Like I can be in the middle of a book that I'm working on and maybe having trouble figuring an aspect of it out, and I'll just switch gears and I'll just go read something and think, oh wow, wait a minute, I could do this, and So it actually helps me be a better writer to read in my genre.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought that, and so it's always been one of those things where I would hear from other authors that were like, "Oh, I don't do it, and I'm like, but it makes more sense to me that you would be inspired and could kind of maybe work out a kink without having to like write it yourself in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Lynette, before I let you go, where can readers find more information about you?
I am online. My website is www.LynetteEason.com. I'm on Facebook. And just look under Lynette Eason and you'll see my author page. Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Pinterest, but Pinterest is more of my fun, waste some time kind of thing, right, which yeah. I haven't been on Pinterest in forever, but and I'm mostly active probably on my Facebook author page. I'm just starting with the Instagram thing because I'm being pulled into it kicking and screaming by my 19-year-old daughter who tells me Facebook is passé and I need to be on Instagram. So,
well, your daughter is correct. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's where you can find me.
That's awesome. Well, Lynette, thank you so much, and I'm very excited for the next book and to see where this rest of the series goes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. Have a great weekend, and we will talk soon.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
I'd like to extend my thanks to Lynette Eason for joining me today. You can find Oath of Honor anywhere books are sold. Thank you also to REVELL and Bethany House Books for their continued support of the podcast. Make sure you stop by freshfiction.com to find out more about Mary Connealy's The Accidental Guardian, which is available now. And also, guys, we're still growing, so please help us by rating the podcast, leaving a comment, or even just sharing it on social media. Thank you so much to everybody who has already done that, told your friends. I appreciate it. I'm seeing the numbers going up, so it's really cool to hear and see that people are enjoying what we're doing. You can also find us on Twitter at Fresh Fiction, Instagram as Fresh Fiction, and on Facebook /Fresh Fiction. So if you ever forget, it's just Fresh Fiction. I'll be back next time with some more new things to watch, read, and listen to.